Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. So, the goal for today, perhaps the goal over the next several days, however long, I don't know, is to really get a firm grasp on the first round prospects and to have a very clear opinion, I guess. So I guess the goal from me to you, for me, is to, well, for both of us, is to have a firm understanding of the information that's out there, and then for me to kind of develop an opinion. You don't have to follow my opinion anywhere. But another thing that I want to try to do that's a little bit different in the past, and I do love doing this, and I find it to be very fun, and I find it interesting to hear who other people put in that category. But in the past, the goal has been to find sort of the my guys. Just kind of comb through, wait until something kind of clicks, wait until you find that guy whose jaw makes your jaw hit the floor, put him in the my guy camp and move on. I don't know if it's just this particular crop of guys or what, but I'm having a harder time doing that this year. I do have a couple my guys, there's no question about it, but even, as I've said before, even the my guys are kind of, but I understand the flaws. And then as I went back through and I started watching guys like Trey Amos, which the main reason for that is the rumors that were swirling around that the Packers showed up to I think it was the Ole Miss Pro Day, and were heavily focused on Trey Amos. There's a lot of talk about they're really looking at that guy. So I wanted to go back and kind of get a look at him. And what I found was I could see the vision. And then I went back and watched Azariah Thomas, however you say it, and I can see the vision. And so I think for everybody, it's a question of, here's the problems, here's the flaws, here's the potential hurdles, the negatives. But these are first round, second round prospects. And my idea of first round prospects is essentially to cover the first two rounds. When I went back and looked and made my list to go over, I went all the way to 65. And the reason really was I just went back and tried to find, I think it was it 65, 66 here? I don't have this in order right now. Whatever. It was beyond the entire second round, because it was a question of essentially impossible that one of these guys could be first round picks to be off the list. And so, like, at 65 is Alec Iomanner. I really would be shocked if he was a first round pick, but not totally. And I don't want to do all this work and then have them pick Iomanner, or have them pick Uman Mielen, or have them pick Marcus Mbo, or something crazy, and just not be prepared for it. So I essentially, when we do the quote-unquote first round, we're talking first and second. When we look at second-round prospects, it's going to be kind of second and third, and so on and so forth. But I want to kind of look and say, this is the path to being fantastic, and these are sort of the hindrances. I can't guarantee I'm always going to be able to do that, because sometimes I'm just going to watch people and I'm going to say, I just don't get it. I just don't understand it. And that's especially going to be happening more and more as we get later on into the draft. But especially for the first round prospects, they're in this range for a reason, and I want to be able to see what exactly that reason is. Now, for the corners, and by the way, the plan, and these things tend to morph, is for me to watch the prospects so I can kind of give a first-hand account of my personal thoughts, feelings, whatever. And then we've got PFF, we've got the Beast Draft Guide, and then we've got some of the data here, height, weight, 40, that kind of stuff. RAS data, combine data, whatever. Something else to keep in mind is that I'm using the consensus big board to grab these prospects. So, for example, Benjamin Morrison is the lowest on this list. Let me just give you the corners that I grabbed. Will Johnson, Jade Baron, Maxwell Hairston, Savon Revel, Trey Amos, Azariah Thomas, and Benjamin Morrison. Now, most of these are really not in the window. Will Johnson and Jade Baron are probably gone. And some of these guys are much more solid second-round picks. In fact, you could argue all of them are. But Will Johnson and Jade Baron are at least within the realm of possibility, especially when you factor in there's a potential trade-up. And I think for the rest of these guys, none of it is 100% out of the realm of possibility that the Packers could end up drafting them. We've already talked about Trey Amos as being a possibility. I think most of us acknowledge that it could happen. And Azariah Thomas and Benjamin Morrison are not that much further down the consensus board. With that said, though, for example, on the Beast draft guide, Benjamin Morrison is the 10th graded corner behind Jacob Parrish and Noel Williams. So this is not a 100% guarantee. Benjamin Morrison probably could be left off, but I'm not going to for the reasons I've already articulated. But with that, why don't we start with Benjamin Morrison? So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So he's 7 of 7 on the consensus big board at consensus 48. He is one of the guys that really doesn't have any, I don't know if red flags is even the right way to put it, but in terms of looking at height, weight, hand, arm, wingspan, age, RAS, all that stuff, the only thing he's on the low end for is his arm length, but he's 21 years old. Age is kind of an issue with this group. There's only 3 guys, well, 4, I guess. Oh, wait, one of these, I forgot I put Jair in here for a comparison. 3 guys who have ages that are under 23 years old. Benjamin Morrison is 21.12 years old. Will Johnson is 22, and Azariah Thomas is 20.8, which we'll get to Azariah Thomas next, but that's one of the biggest benefits for him is the tools to work with. But, so, when it comes to Benjamin Morrison, again, did I see anything where it was like a jaw-dropping kind of thing? Not necessarily, but can I see the vision? Absolutely. One of the things that's really good about this group, and I don't know if it's unusual, I haven't really noticed it before. A lot of these guys, when you look at them and you read through what they do and whatnot, it's a really high percentage of press man coverage that these guys play. Maybe that's just more prominent in college than it is the pros. I don't really know. But there are a lot of guys that you read about them. Savon Revel, Trey Amos, Benjamin Morrison. I think those are 3 of them, and maybe even more. But they play an extremely high percentage. And so right out of the gate, you got Benjamin Morrison, who's 6 foot 193, which is perfectly adequate size. There are some complaints about he's a little bit lacking in muscle mass, but I don't really necessarily see that on the field. He's a pretty violent football player. There was a play against Clemson where you got this big, I don't know if he's a big wide receiver or a tight end, who was trying to block him down the field, and he just freaking judo tossed him, like just did a hip toss, threw him to the ground, and went and tried to get after a guy. But I didn't really see a whole lot that he just couldn't do. He does a very good job of getting in somebody's chest, which can be just, we talk about straight line speed, and I don't know, he didn't run a 40, but we talk about straight line speed and things of that nature. And, again, kind of like with wide receivers, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't, and it can be kind of a problem. But I had a hard time gauging his speed because he did such a good job of just getting inside the chest of somebody that he was just slowing everybody down so much they couldn't use their speed. So I never really saw him try to run just next to somebody stride for stride. It might have been a couple times. I didn't see him get lost. Never really saw him get burned at all. And again, all it really takes to take a 4.29 guy and make him a 4.49 guy is to just kind of put your arm out in front of the guy. That's enough to slow somebody down quite a bit. And you see guys do that in the NFL all the time. You just kind of keep your arm out in front of them and just kind of keep nudging them a little bit. And it drops their speed probably. 4.49 is actually probably way too generous. I didn't follow up on this, but one of the things I looked at a few weeks ago was I tried to actually gauge wide receiver speed on the field. And I was getting around 13 miles an hour on average because of all the stuff that they had to do, the different angles that they had to run around and the time it took to get off the line and to try to run past somebody who's just got you pressed up at the line and everything else. And these are like, the speed when you convert it to a 40 time, it's not even in the 4s. I don't remember exactly what it is, but they're running like offensive line times. So that's where you look at speed and it's like, it doesn't mean anything because you're not even running a 4.9 when you look at how long it takes you to cover 20, 30 yards in the NFL or in college. Now, there are times it might pop up if you're, in zone and you can run unabated, or if you're in man and you can beat a guy off the line and then you can just get into a foot race down the field. I mean, it can show up, but it's very rare. And he does, bottom line, Benjamin Morrison does a very good job of getting in the way and being disruptive. I watched him against Clemson in 2023 because there's a lot of talk about 2024. I watched, what was the 2024 game? A&M in 2024. That was fine. I went back to 2023 because he had a hip injury in 2024. He missed a bunch of time. 2023 was his best year. I watched him against Clemson. It was a solid game. He had, I want to say, like 3 pass breakups. One of them went for an interception because he tipped it up. It's another thing he does really well is break on the ball. So even from, you think about that as kind of a zone thing. You stand back, you read the quarterback, but even from man, he can do a good job of keeping his butt to the goal line and keeping his, eyes in the backfield and then breaking on a ball. There's a play, I tried to get a video of it, but my stupid thing is just not working for some reason. I don't know what the problem is. But the third game I decided to watch real quick was against Ohio State, because now you've got Emeka Egbuka, but you've also got Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, he spent most of his time up against Julian Fleming, unfortunately, and I did start to see a little bit of a gap and a little bit of trepidation against Marvin Harrison. There were a couple routes, that quick slant route type stuff can be real tough, but he tried to run that same quick slant route, and again, he's in press, and he just breaks on the ball. And he breaks on it, he knocks out the ball, he breaks up the pass, gets up, and what does he do? Does the sword celebration or the seatbelt celebration or whatever you want to call it, but he sheathes the sword, just straight up Jair style. That got me a little bit excited. But you can see, again, he's probably a second-round pick. He's been falling quite a bit, but you can absolutely see when you watch him, it's a pretty good matchup between him and Marvin Harrison. And as far as whoever these guys were at Clemson, they didn't have a ton of great receivers over there, but he made easy work of that. I think the only reception I saw him give up, he was in perfect coverage. It was just a perfect throw and perfect catch, and he tried to break it up, and he was fighting all the way down to the bottom. The guy just wouldn't give up the ball. Similar thing happened with Marvin Harrison down the sideline, and I think they called it incomplete. But it was just a really well-thrown ball. He went up and was able to grab it and come down with it, but you couldn't get any better coverage. So I don't really see him just getting cooked. I don't see him losing his balance, when he's getting beat real bad. I think there are probably guys that have that quick, shifty speed that can maybe get that little bit of separation. I also don't think he's the strongest guy. He's a willing tackler. He's willing to go try to find contact. He's not the best at it. There's a play with him coming kind of downhill, tried to light a guy up. I think it was the Ohio State game, trying to come down and get a running back and just kind of whiffed on him. I mean, it was a huge cut by the running back, but still. So I could see the second round prospect because he doesn't kind of check every single box like you'd like more so in a first round pick. But I like him. I like Morrison more than I did the first time around. I could see him as being a starting corner, maybe not an elite corner, maybe an elite corner. I don't know. But when you look at the guys that we have, do I think he could be better than absolutely I do. And I think he's got some great tools. The other thing is when you look at like getting beat real bad by Marvin Harrison, I think some of that is more of a technique thing than an ability thing. And that's where you look at it and say, okay, let's get him with Jeff Hafley, and let's get him with Derek Ansley, and let's teach him press man technique and where to put your leverage and where to, which hand to lead with and how to have your feet so that you can come out of this stance. Because if you're kind of just on the wrong foot, that's when Harrison cuts to the inside and you're kind of caught flat-footed. So we want to make sure that you have the proper technique to make sure that doesn't happen. That's kind of the bigger thing, I think, with a lot of these guys is it that you can't do it, which some of the times you watch these corners and you go, anytime, that's kind of like the Stokes-Kevin King thing. Straight line is great. Anytime these guys do a sharp cut to the inside, they're always getting beat. They just have a hard time recovering and they might have the makeup speed, but coming out of that break, they just can't do it. I didn't see that with Morrison. He got beat one time with that. Okay, great. But again, you teach him technique, and the second time they tried it, what happened? He broke on it and broke the ball up. I don't think it's so much an ability thing as it is like I said, a technique thing. So I think he's kind of a combination of right now, today, he can come in and be a starting corner. I think there's also an ability to get even better than he is. And remember, he's 21. He's pretty young. Going through the Beast Guide a little bit here. I don't want to go through the pros and cons. You can find pros and cons lists anywhere online, but some of the background stuff that they do in the Beast Guide is pretty cool. So he's the youngest of 5 kids, born and raised outside of D.C. with his parents Daryl and Joanne. His father, a Phoenix native, played safety at Arizona and was drafted in the 6th round of the 93 draft, played 4 seasons for Washington. He became a pastor after his retirement. In 2015, he moved the family to Virginia, to the Phoenix area. Phoenix, Virginia, interesting, where he founded Valley Gate Church. Joanne, who also graduated from Arizona, works in the church. Daryl also leads a chapel service for the Arizona Cardinals on the weekend. Wait a minute. Oh, from Virginia to Phoenix. I was like, wait. All right, so he does chapel services for the Arizona Cardinals, which is cool. All 5 of the children became Division I athletes. The oldest, Faith, was a gymnast at Washington. His only brother, Sammy, played corner at his parents' alma mater in Arizona before transferring to San Diego State in 2019. His final season, middle child Grace played volleyball at App State. Youngest sister Naomi won a national championship as an all-10 gymnast at Michigan. Benjamin grew up a multi-sport athlete like his siblings, but always wanted to follow in the footsteps of his father and older brother as he played football. He signed up for football the first day he could. He also learned the game from Pro Football Hall of Famer Darryl Green, or as they call him, Uncle Darryl, his father's former teammate and a family friend. I guess his dream school was Clemson, but they didn't make him an offer. Morrison admitted that it was a blow to his confidence, but he did get a ton of offers, including Alabama, Florida State, LSU, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, and Penn State. Morrison developed a connection with Irish defensive backs coach Mike Mickens and head coach Marcus Freeman, who's, it's another selling point. Marcus Freeman is kind of a superstar right now in the coaching circle, so having a guy come from that program is probably not a terrible thing. And he was drawn to the culture of South Bend, which he felt was familiar to what he had in high school, both Catholic schools. After missing most of the 2024 season because of injury, Morrison elected to skip the senior season and enter the NFL draft. He missed 1 game with a quad injury in 2023, missed the final 10 games with a hip injury in 2024. Mature, driven by faith, and loyal to teammates, took captain status to heart and remained plugged in through the entire 2024 season despite his injury. So the high character stuff is big. 2 hip surgeries over the past 4 years, missed most of his junior season at Notre Dame after undergoing hip surgery in October 2024. Hip labral repair surgery as junior in high school. See, that's not great when you got high school and college, like recurring hip injuries. It just makes me nervous. It could just be a coincidence, but it makes me nervous. Required a 9-month recovery, missed 1 game because of a quad strain in 23, missed most of 24, spring practice because of right shoulder injury. See, there's a lot of injuries here, man. That's another issue with some of these guys, man. There's just a lot of injuries. All right, I'm going to try to go faster moving forward here as we go through the rest of these corners, but I do like being as thorough as is humanly possible. We'll do Azariah Thomas on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. Azariah. Got to remember that. Not Azariah, Azariah. So, and again, when I first looked at Benjamin, I didn't like him. When I first watched Azariah Thomas, I didn't care for him. But I think I started to understand it when I looked through some of these different things here. First of all, he's a much more willing physical player at 20.8 years old. Very young guy. He's a very he seeks out contact a little bit more. That was one of my biggest things with Trey Amos. That guy I really started to like Trey Amos. That dude will avoid contact at all costs. There's a couple times I've seen him try, and he comes up big. I'm talking about Amos, but he just doesn't want to try ever. He's like, that's not my job. I'm a corner. I lock people down. I don't tackle people. That's not the case with Azariah Thomas. The other benefits, he's one of the biggest guys at 6'1.5", 196, basically the same size as Will Johnson and Savon Revel. He's the he's the second heaviest behind only Savon Revel. He's got the biggest hands at 10 1/4. He's got tied for the second longest arms, the second longest wingspan. Only Revel is longer. He's the youngest of the group. He had an 817 RAS, which all of these guys that have RAS scores had fine RASs. The problem with Azariah Thomas, and this is a problem, he ran a 4.58 40. Now, I went back and looked, and I said, who right now is the top corner that runs a 4.58? And there really aren't guys. There are some older guys that have been able to pull it off. Rasul Douglas was like a 4.59 guy. Xavier Howard, who, again, a little bit of an older guy, probably not in his prime right now, but he's a 4.58 guy. Outside of that, again, it's not an impossibility, but man, you're not finding a lot of top corners these days that are running mid 4.5s. So again, it's not impossible, and I can understand you looking at it and saying there's tools here, and I like his physical size and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, speed you can't teach, and that's always going to be a limiting factor. And the fact of the matter is there is a ceiling here. It's kind of like being 5'9", I mean, or having short arms or whatever. I mean, there's something that just can't be fixed. And so the problem with Azariah Thomas is that he's always going to have to be better than a lot of other guys. You're going to have to be able to make less mistakes because you're not going to have that makeup speed and everything else. So that's kind of my hang-up. I hate to get stuck on something like a 40 time, but I just feel like that's going to be a bit of a hindrance. I think when you look at the draft guide here, the Beast draft guide is a little bit of a, the comp is Carlton Davis, which I think you could make that case as well. Carlton Davis was a little faster, but he ran, I think, a 4.53, and he did it about 10 pounds heavier, I believe. So it's not exactly the same, but you can kind of look at it and say, look, this guy, if he can do it, Azariah Thomas can do it. But I just think from where I'm at right now, I would probably rather not take him in the first 2 rounds because it kind of reminds me of, who was that quarterback out of Tennessee? I think the Lions drafted him, but it was like they had talked about how he was kind of a project and was going to take some time, but he's also already 25 years old. Like I don't want a 25-year-old project. With Thomas, it's like he's got some raw tools, and so you hope that there's some upside there, but there's still a limiting factor of he's never going to be X, Y, and Z. Anyways, pretty wild story as we get into some of his backstory here. Azariah Thomas, 4th of 5 kids, born in Okaloosa County in the Florida Panhandle with his mother, Stephanie. When he was 2 months old, his father, Willie Lee Thomas, who had recently returned from Iraq on a deployment in the Marines, intentionally set fire to the family's home. He was arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, arson, aggravated battery, and child abuse. He was later diagnosed with PTSD. Stephanie and the children avoided serious injury and fled to safety, but they were homeless for a stretch. They relocated to public housing in Dufuniak Springs, Florida, where Azariah followed in his older brother's footsteps and started playing basketball, baseball, soccer, and track. He started football at Pee Wee level, quickly became his favorite sport. His oldest brother, Azande Ray, played wide receiver at Florida A&M before transferring to Georgia Tech. His older brother, Wanye Thomas, was a safety at Georgia Tech and signed with the Dallas Cowboys after going undrafted. Thomas also has an older Cachet and younger sister, Natalia. Thomas played varsity football at Walton County as a 6th grader. They relocated to Niceville for better football opportunities. He went to Niceville High, 4-year varsity letterman, played both ways. Obviously, like everybody, high school football went very, very well. He lettered in baseball and track. 4-star recruit, 4th-ranked athlete in the 2022 recruiting class, and the number 13 recruit in Florida. First career start came in 2023, and then in 2024 was honorable mention All-ACC, led the team in interceptions and pass deflections. So that's where I'm at with Azariah Thomas. Next on our list here is Trey Amos. Trey Amos I came around to in a pretty big way. He is 6'1", 195, 4.43. He's got plenty of speed, 153, 10-yard split. Hands are 9 1/8, which is about midpoint there. Arms 11 7/8. Wingspan 77 7/8. I'm trying to get the decimal to fraction conversions right. I think that's right. RAS 837. So everything's great. The biggest issue, though, 23 years old. Now, 23 isn't crazy. You get into 24, 25, it gets crazy. 23 is still a little bit on the older side that I would probably prefer to not have. But the more I watched Trey Amos out of Mississippi, the more I really started to appreciate him. again, the biggest issue I had with him, and I complain about this with everybody that's a DB, especially if you're a safety, but still as a corner, I'd like to see some desire for contact or physicality. And again, if you look hard enough, you can find it. But it just, it's not there as often as you'd like. He kind of, there are times when there's a guy kind of breaking away and he's on the other side of the field, and instead of booking it, because there's an off chance you could be the one that gets there for whatever reason, he just kind of does a little jog thing and is like, well, someone's either going to get him or they're not, but it's got nothing to do with me. The thing for me with Amos, he seems to be a really intelligent corner. There are just certain little things that you see that it's like, how did you know not to do that? So I'm watching his game against Florida. I'm trying to find the best receivers I can. They've got Elijah Badger, and they've also got Chimere Dike, who's got blazing speed. So it's a good dynamic. Of course, they never go up against these guys as much as you'd like them to, going up against Jaquavian Frazers or something like that. But just a couple examples. So first of all, you'll see, because coverage can be kind of confusing. You know, sometimes you declare one way and then you do another thing. There are times where, you know, he'll be dropping back and then he'll point out to the safety when somebody cuts. And he's like, hey, get him. Because the safety's kind of spinning down or whatever terminology. But he's going to come down and get that guy in the middle of the field. He's pointing it out, telling him, hey, come get this guy, and then he'll bail and go get somebody else. He's a very vocal guy. He knows not only where he's supposed to be, but everybody else's assignments. There are times when they'll be running these little pick plays or rub plays, picks, and he'll sniff it out. He can see what the receiver's doing, and rather than just turning and running like you normally would and getting blasted, without even looking at this guy that's standing there, he'll jump up and then go around and chase him from behind. He knew it was there. The play I'm watching right now, he's in press coverage. He does a lot of press coverage like a lot of these guys do. He's up in his face. The receiver opens up like he's going to sprint down the field and then kind of comes back and tries to cut to the inside. And if you look at Amos, he doesn't start backpedaling. In fact, when the receiver tries to cut into the inside, he actually has put his left foot, so envision this, you're on the right side of the field, right, or on the defensive right side. He's trying to get to Amos's left, to the middle of the field. Amos is actually, rather than backing up because it looks like he's going to start sprinting down the field, he steps forward with his left foot to block off his path. He didn't bite on it. He didn't panic. He didn't say, oh, shoot, here he goes. This is Elijah Badger, by the way. He was a solid receiver for them. He had an 82 receiving grade, 91 drop grade, 806 yards on the season. He didn't bite. It's like he knew what he was going to do. He's like, I'm not falling for that crap. And you watch him try to get to the inside, and it turns into this 30-second fist fight when all Badger's trying to do is get him to take a slight step back so I can just do a step to the inside, and then he was going to cut back to the outside. So it's kind of one of those, you know, in and then back out, quick out type of routes that the Packers love to run all the time. But he spent the I don't know if the quarterback went down or what exactly happened. I think the quarterback got sacked. He spent so much time trying to just get into the inside because the freaking guy's in his way. He just never seems phased. He never seems confused. He seems to always have a beat on what they're doing, what he's doing, what everybody's doing. Even times when you look and you say that coverage isn't super tight, he has such a good understanding of what's happening. Yeah, he backed away from him because the play has now gone to the other side, or it's a little bit further down the field, so there can be a slight cushion there because the ball's not going to get there very fast. So there's a little bit of space that's generated there, but he also doesn't overcommit because you got these guys that are running these quick, short routes, you know, to corner post type of thing or whatever, in the deep part of the field. Well, if you're on his heels, that sharp cut might get you lost, but you're kind of giving him a little bit of cushion, so as he goes that way, you kind of track with him, but you don't over pursue and get yourself killed, so that when he cuts back, you can recover pretty easily. He's just running right back to you because I didn't overcommit to that direction and get burned on the way back. And again, he has that understanding of we're further down the field. This isn't like, you know, running a quick slant route where the second he gets separation, boom, that ball's right in his face and I just got burned. If he wants to launch the ball, I'm going to see it and I'm going to be able to get there. I have time. So, you know, Amos is not, and this is kind of the thing with this draft class, there's not a lot of, you know, he's not a 4.29 guy, so he's intelligent, he's physical, he's all the things. He's not all the things. But he's got plenty of speed at 4.43, and his 10-yard split was tied with Maxwell Hairston's. So that initial burst is really fast. Maxwell Hairston ran a 4.28, and they had the same 10-yard splits. The Packers might also be really into that. It's interesting when I look at Jair. He ran a 4.38, so he's really fast. That's like Jade Baron speed, but a 1.52 10-yard split, which would be faster than Maxwell Hairston and significantly faster than Jade Baron, who's much more closely comped to Jair until you look at stuff like that, where the 10-yard splits are very different. The arm length, the age. Jade Baron's 23 and a half. Jair was 21. But Amos has got good speed and very good short area speed. Long arms, good athleticism, and seems extremely intelligent. Again, is this a lock first-round pick for me? Not necessarily. Would I be mad if they took him in the first? No, because I think he's a starting corner. Amos out of Ole Miss, worked with defensive coordinator Pete Golding's diverse coverage scheme, press man, off man, zone, etc. 3 years at Louisiana, transferred to Alabama, played behind Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. After Nick Saban retired, Amos made the move to Ole Miss, where he had a breakout season with the SEC best 16 passes defended, which is really impressive. He had one in this game against Florida, too. That was really nice. Broke on it. Just absolutely just blasted the ball out of the air. Just get out of my freaking face. Comped him to Paulson Adebo here. Played on punt return coverages all 5 seasons and had a blocked PAT in 2022, so you got some special teams ability there as well. Saw action in 61 career games, and final season was the best one, so he's got a lot of experience. Didn't really miss a lot of time with injury. He missed 2 games as a sophomore because of a hamstring injury, and I think that's it. His name is Trenavion. Goes by Trey Amos, one of 6 kids, grew up in New Iberia, Louisiana, with his mother, Renee Francis, and stepfather, Darren Francis. Played football at the Pee Wee level, continued through middle school. Went to Catholic New Iberia High. 3-sports standout. Helped his team to a 13-1 record, 13-1-1. Division III state championship. Also played basketball, standout track athlete, winning 2019 state championship in the long jump. School record 22 feet 10 inches. Personal best of 11.49 in the 100 meters and 23.55 in the 200. He's a 3-star recruit, 105th ranked athlete. Before his senior season, Amos committed to the Ragin' Cajuns as a corner, mostly because of his connection with Billy Napier, the coaching staff. Despite some late interest from SEC programs, stayed committed, was a 9th ranked recruit in Napier's class. Ended up transferring, etc., etc. So enrolled in 2020 with Louisiana, pandemic-shortened season. Missed the first 2 games with a hamstring in 2022. It's also when he had his blocked PAT. 2023 went to Alabama, enrolled of May 2023, and then 2024 went to Ole Miss, first team All-SEC, led the team in interceptions and pass deflections, enrolled January 2024. All right, I don't know how we're going to get through the rest of these faster, but let's just take a break here, and we'll try to do speed round. We got Savon Revel up next. All right, so probably the most, I would say, physically gifted of the bunch, Savon Revel out of East Carolina, 6'1", closer to 6'2", 202 pounds. He's the only one of this group that's over 200. He didn't run the 40, but I'm telling you from watching him, this guy is fast. Almost 10-inch hands, 32 and, 5/7 or whatever that is. 80-inch wingspan is the largest. So he's second biggest hands, longest arms, biggest wingspan. But I've kind of given my opinion on him. This is one of those things where I just don't really like it. There is nobody, I don't think, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't know that anybody has a higher ceiling than Savon Revel. He plays downhill, he plays fast, he plays physical, he plays violent. He's got makeup speed for days, he's got all that. First thing, I don't know that he's quite the same as Amos in terms of anticipating. He's more of a reactor. And in a game that's this fast, that can be kind of a problem, because all the makeup speed in the world can't always compensate for things. But again, if you can coach him up and all that stuff, he could be really, really good. However, he is 24 years old. He's the oldest of the group. That's not good. And the injuries are out of control. It is a constant recurring thing with him. So look, if we draft Savon Revel in the first round, second round, whatever it is, am I going to be excited? Sure, I will. I'll be excited because I know what this guy's upside is, and I know that the Packers feel confident and comfortable with the injuries and whatnot. I'm just saying, sitting here today, not knowing exactly what the doctors have been saying, I'm not comfortable with it. But he was with defensive coordinator Blake Harrell's quarters-based scheme after grades forced him to go to the junior college route. We talked about that before. That's also not my favorite thing. 17 passes defended, 3 interceptions over his final 15 college starts. Unfortunately, a knee injury sidelined him for most of his senior season. and the pre-draft process, which kept him from testing or working out with NFL teams before the draft. Loves to press, looks to get physical and disrupt out routes early. Returned 2 of 3 career interceptions, 50 yards or more for touchdowns. Blocked field goals in consecutive weeks in 2023. Faced numerous roadblocks, no question about mental toughness or work ethic. I mean, that's the positive side of it, but the roadblocks themselves make me nervous. Thin-limbed, doesn't carry mass on his frame. Will be 24 on draft weekend. Torn ACL and partial meniscus tear in left knee during practice September 2024 sidelined him for the remainder of his final season and most of the draft process. Missed the start of 2022 season because of boxer's fracture to right hand suffered in preseason camp. Multiple injuries from high school, including broken collarbone as a junior and serious head trauma and other injuries from a car accident as a sophomore. Savon Revel Jr. has 3 brothers and 3 sisters, born and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, with his father Keith and mother Tameka Rapley. Introduced to football at age 4 by his father, started out as a running back, played Pop Warner level, played soccer and basketball in middle school, but focused on football and track. Along with his brothers, Revel started speed training when he was young, later played 7-on-7 for the Tigers, coached by his father. Older brother Shaheem played running back Division II Virginia Wise. Younger brother Shamar signed with Lewisburg, North Carolina College. Oldest sister Shaquaria Carson died in June 2023 after a long illness and kidney failure. Jeez. Played on varsity as a sophomore in high school, but season ended prematurely after he was involved in a car accident during fall of 2017, resulting in serious head trauma, a fractured skull, broken nose requiring 28 stitches, and a bruised jaw and neck. His father and 2 brothers were also in the car. Revel was able to dunk at a young age, but injuries kept him from playing basketball in high school. He ran track at both Reynolds and Reagan High School. He had personal best at senior, 20 feet 10 inches, blah, blah, blah. No star athlete coming out of high school. Heard from several FBS programs through high school, but his grades kept him from being seriously considered at the time. Went to Lewisburg College, a 2-year program, despite not having a ton of junior college tape because of the pandemic. Attended a recruiting camp at East Carolina, impressed the coaches who offered him and promised a scholarship if he could improve his GPA. Committed to East Carolina in June 2021, was 4th-ranked player in former head coach Mike Houston's 2022 recruiting class. After his breakout 2023 season, Revel considered entering the transfer portal, especially after receiving interest from several high-level programs. Many offered 6-figure NIL packages, including Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, and Wisconsin. However, he chose to stay with the program that believed in him and graduated with a degree in December of 2024. Despite missing most of the 2024 season because of an ACL injury, he entered the NFL draft, accepted his invitation to the East-West Shrine Bowl. There you go. Next, at 37 on the consensus board is Maxwell Hairston. He is about 6 foot 183. He's a little bit on the smaller side. He is the second shortest after Jade Baron, although he's basically 6 foot, so he's not short. But 183 is, he's the only one under 190. The next lightest is Benjamin Morrison at 193, so he's 10 pounds lighter than the next lightest guy in this group. But 4.28 speed, 153 10-yard split, 32.5-inch arms, 9.63 RAS. Hand size is a little undersized. It's the smallest at 8.75. So he's a smaller guy, again, but really, really fast. There's also another guy that you probably want to look at his 2023 tape. He only played about a half a season in 2024 and only really had 1 or 2 good games in that season. You could blame it on injuries or whatever, but 2023 is probably your best bet. He graded out significantly better in that season than either of 2022, which he didn't really play, or 2024. Watching him 2023 against Missouri, against Mizzou, and they've actually got some really solid. They got Theo Weiss over there, who I said I liked, and he is their 3rd best receiver. Marquise Johnson has a 90 PFF receiving grade, so he's a pretty solid guy. Might see him in the draft maybe next year. I don't think he's in this year's class. And then Luther Burden, obviously, with a 91 receiving grade, is their top guy. But, and he had a pretty good game against them. Got a little more zone, but keeping his eyes on the ball, and got a pick real early in the game. I think my biggest issue with him is just his size. I mean, there's a play where there's just a quick out route. He breaks down and just comes after this guy. It's one of those things where, depending on which person you're looking at, linebacker, corner, safety, this wide receiver is about to get absolutely lit up. So it's just a quick, release into the flat, and he comes down in full force. Have you seen that video? It's been going around social media. This crazy lady gets mad at a guy for fishing there, and she comes up, and he's standing right on the edge. I mean, I'm thinking if it's me, one little nudge, and I go flying into the water. She comes down and hits him as hard as she possibly can. He didn't move, and she goes flying on her butt. That's kind of what happened here. I mean, he just looks small. I mean, I can identify him on the field before that little arrow comes up because he's the guy who looks like his helmet is as wide as his shoulders. He looks tiny. And, I mean, he came downhill to lay this guy out, and the receiver barely moved. So, I don't know, man. He's a willing tackler, no question about it. He's a scrappy dude. He blitzes off the edge. I think it's just a little bit too much zone with him. I'm not seeing a ton of him manning up on people. I think he could probably pretty easily get out physicaled. If you're talking about some of these bigger NFL receivers, and you got to remember, it's not just that they're big. I mean, these guys are big and fast. I mean, you got guys that can run almost as fast as you that got 30 pounds on you. Can this guy really match up mano-a-mano? Is this a guy that should go in the first round as a result of that? Maybe he can. I'm not anti-Maxwell Hairston. I think for every attribute he has, somebody has something a little bit better. I do love the speed. I love the way he plays. But just trying to think of what the Packers could use, I don't see this as the best option. And even just, I got Amos still in the back of my head. Just one quick example, I don't know if it might have been Luther Burden because he was covering somebody in the slot. But either way, he's pressing up the field and he makes a quick cut to come back and catch the ball. The ball doesn't come to him, but when he makes that cut, what is Maxwell Hairston doing? He's in his back pedal and he falls, not actually literally falls, but he's falling backward, trying to recover and try. I mean, if that was passed to him, that's an easy reception. So there's just kind of an element of makeup speed is great, but how much makeup speed do you need to cover for these little lapses? I'd rather have a guy like Amos. I'm not saying that that's officially what I want, but a guy like Amos that doesn't need the makeup speed because he doesn't make the mistakes in the first place. He's in the right spot to begin with. But it's also hard to judge because a lot of this is him playing in zone, so there's just naturally going to be some spaces there. So it's a lot of him dropping to his spot and then going and chasing somebody down and tackling him. What happens if you change that up and have him play the way that Hafley wants him to play? Maybe he'd excel at it. I don't know. But it's hard for me to sit here and make a determination on that, I guess. But he was a cornerback in Brad White's scheme with a balance of mixed man and zone. Put himself on the radar with the SEC best 5 interceptions in 2023. Tied school record with 3 career pick sixes. Fluid mover with A+ speed. Competitive, lanky athlete who feels routes developing. Missed 5 games as a junior because of a shoulder injury in September of 2024, so that was kind of that whole situation. His nickname is Mad Max Hairston, youngest of 4 kids, born and raised in West Bloomfield, Michigan, with his parents, Marvin and Robin. Considered himself more of a basketball player growing up, but started to blossom on the football field, primarily at wide receiver. In high school, he was active in 7-on-7. His older cousin, Lindsey Hairston, played college basketball at Michigan State before being selected by the Detroit Pistons in the 1975 NBA draft. Another cousin, Tywan Jones, was all Big Ten linebacker at Michigan State, spent 2 seasons with the New York Jets after going undrafted. Another cousin, Jalen Bannerman, played linebacker for 2 seasons at Kentucky in 16 and 17 before going JUCO route and then finishing at Utah State. He was teammates with several blue-chip recruits in high school, including Donovan Edwards and Makari Page, both signed with Michigan. He started JV and then grabbed the attention of varsity head coach Ron Bellamy, who played wide receiver for 5 seasons in the NFL and is now a wide receiver coach at Michigan. Made a name for himself as a junior by allowing just 1 catch all season. Hairston had a game-winning touchdown in double overtime, which was in the 2020 Division I state championship. Hairston graduated with a degree in community leadership and development. He elected to skip his senior season and enter the NFL draft. And that is that. Final two, Jade Baron. Now, this is a huge gap here from Maxwell Hairston at 37 on the consensus board to Jade Baron at 15. And again, I'm going to keep these last two on here with the chance that, first of all, one of them could slide. Second of all, there's always a trade-up possibility, so I want to make sure we at least talk about him. I'm not going to talk about Travis Hunter because that's stupid. As for Jade Baron, I'll be honest. I watched him against Florida, and they run the ball so freaking much. I was like, all right, let's try a different one. So I watched him against Georgia. His grades are phenomenal, by the way. 91 coverage grade. In his final year here, kind of a big breakout year. He's always been kind of good, 70, 70, 70, and then 91. So he had 2 picks in this game, and neither one of them were great. One of them, he's in the middle of nowhere because he plays a lot of zone. The ball inexplicably just goes over to him where he's the only one standing there, and he gets that one. The other one, he gets beat, and it's a bad throw. It gets tipped up in the air, and he catches it. I'm not trying to dunk on the guy. I would say he's kind of okay, average, whatever, across the board. He's not slow, but I don't see what I see in like Savon Revel or Maxwell Hairston, despite having 4.39 speed, basically 4.4 or whatever. I don't know. I don't see it. And again, the 10-yard split was actually relatively slow, the 1.55. So he's got it. So I probably am not too worried about it. And again, he doesn't look slow, but I don't see that as like a major asset. Like, dude, this guy can fly. He's not soft or weak. He's built. He's a little shorter, but he's 194. He's compact. You know, he can handle himself. He doesn't avoid contact, but he's not super downhill, aggressive, violent. He doesn't get blown off the ball, but he doesn't really throw people around either. He's not terrible in coverage, but he does get beat. I don't see a ton of man coverage, which makes it tough because sometimes in zone, it's just kind of a disadvantageous situation. If you're told to drop and somebody runs a quick in cut and you got to come downhill and you can't get there fast enough, I can't really blame you for that. But then again, maybe I can because you weren't supposed to play it that way. I don't exactly know. A lot of times you're going based on leverage, so you're not super tight on the guy, but you're kind of pushing him toward the safety, and it could be the safe. It's difficult. But I'd like to just see more man-to-man. I'd like to see the press. I'd like to see that. The other thing that kind of bothered me is a lot of times with speed, you know, when a guy's coming at you full blast, it's difficult to start backpedal, flip your hips, and run with him. His strategy seemed to be I'm going to plant my feet and just, you know, hold my ground against you so I create like a barrier so I can drop your speed to 0 and then we'll just kind of both turn and run together from there. I don't know the legalities of that across the board, but I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that all the time. At some point, I'm going to need to see you try to turn and run with the guy and keep up that level of speed because I don't think you can just constantly grab onto guys and drag their speed down and you know, while you slowly build up your speed. It was a very weird, you know, I'm 10 yards off, I'm just going to stand here, not even start moving until you plow into me, and then we'll just kind of figure out where to go from there as I kind of hold on to you and we ride this up the field together. I just would have liked to have seen you, I mean, slow him down for sure, but you got to flip your hips and try to run with him a little bit here. But again, my biggest thing with Jade Baron is off the field. That's what gets me excited about him. I really like him. I like his work ethic. I think it's entirely possible that he ends up becoming a stud player. I don't see that huge entire round gap between, you know, Savon Revel and Jade Baron, you know, 39 and 15, or Trey Amos at 41 and Jade at 15 or whatever. If you want to tell me he's better, that's fine. I don't know that he's that much better. And again, at 23.4 years old, going to be 24 by the end of this season. But 3-year starter at Texas, played the star hybrid position in Pete Kwiatkowski's zone-heavy scheme. Saw time at corner, safety, nickel, and dime. Played primarily inside as an underclassman, moved to outside 2024, 70% of his snaps. 5 interceptions, 16 passes defensed. Again, 2 of those 5 came in this game. Third Longhorn to win the Jim Thorpe Award, nation's top defensive back. Holds a master's degree in coverage schemes and has done a great job developing the mental part of the game. Interesting way to put that. High football IQ, which I don't doubt. Again, he's a very hard-working, diligent guy. Always ball searching. That is a big Halfley thing, right? They want to go find the ball. Dependable character. Served as team captain for 10 games in 2024. He said, quote, "I just try to be the juice for the defense and for the team. Played 57 games and has functional experience across the secondary." Jade Baron, one of 6 kids, 2 older brothers, 3 little sisters, was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, on the Gulf of America, not Mexico. Before moving to Austin area at elementary school with his mother, Taconia Davis, he played multiple sports throughout his childhood, separated himself on the football field. His cousin is Devin Lemire, a rising senior safety at Baylor. He was a 4-star recruit, 25th ranked cornerback in the 2020 recruiting class, number 51 recruit in Texas. After attending TCU's junior day, he received an offer from former head coach Gary Patterson, committed to Horned Frogs. However, Baron felt like he rushed his decision, decommitted 6 weeks later, added offers from Arizona, Oklahoma State, and Tennessee, received an offer from Baylor in June 2019, committed a week later. After taking an official visit, he signed with Baylor during an early signing period. December 2019 was the Bears' second-ranked recruit, but head coach Matt Rule left for the NFL a few weeks later. Baron was granted a release from the national letter of intent and entered the transfer portal. Added offers from Virginia Tech, Washington State, hoping for his hometown Texas would enter the picture. He grew up attending Texas games. His aunt worked with the Texas band and would get him passes. Chris Ash, who had offered Baron previously as head coach of Rutgers, was hired as defensive coordinator for Texas around the same time and helped clear the way for Baron. He returned for a 5th season thanks to the COVID-19 eligibility rules. Baron earned a spot on the academic All-Big 12 first team and graduated with a degree in December of 2024, declined his invitation to the Senior Bowl. 2020, he had a touchdown on a blocked punt, enrolled June 2020 pandemic-shortened season, missed 3 games in 2021 due to a knee injury. Honorable mention All Big 12, 44-yard interception touchdown, 48-yard fumble return touchdown, and led the team in tackles for a loss in 2022. In 2023, he was second-team All Big 12, 2024 consensus All-American, first-team All-SEC Jim Thorpe Award, led SEC in interceptions and pass deflections, Peach Bowl defensive MVP. So again, that was a big breakout year for him in 2024. And then finally, Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, 6'1.5", 194. Little bit smaller, 9 and an eighth, a seventh, whatever it is, inch hands, 30 and an eighth inch arms, 75 and 7/8 inch wingspan, 22 years old. So on the younger side. Will Johnson did actually work out for NFL teams this morning, so the timing is actually pretty fantastic. Dane Brugler says a few notes. He did not run a 40-yard dash, so I don't have that. He had a 37-inch vertical, a 4.33 short shuttle, above average during positional drills. Was quoted as very smooth. Marcus Mosier says 13th percentile short shuttle, 10th percentile arm length. Good luck figuring him out. Multiple lower body injuries. So, not the greatest. I mean, again, you got 13th percentile short shuttle, not running the 40 because it's presumed that he's not going to run very fast. I think NFL Draft Files here says, I have a hard time believing Will Johnson runs a 4.58 40. He's implying that it's faster, but obviously that means the expectation is that he runs in that range, which would really not be very good. We already kind of went through that with Azariah Thomas with a 4.58. Benjamin Solak says, choosing to believe Will Johnson runs a 4.37 and doesn't want to show off. Humble guy. I will not be taking questions at this time. Marcus Whitman says, I'm really getting cold feet with having Will Johnson as high as I do. 4.37 shuttle and not running your 40 at a private workout where scouts flew out to see you is a major bummer. Will Johnson also very weird because his grades have gotten worse every year. As a rookie, he had an 89 coverage grade. In year 2 of 2023, it dropped to a 79, and in 24, it dropped to a 77. It's also very up and down, inconsistent with his grades. So year 1 was, 60, 70, 50, 50, 70, 60, 70, 80, 70, 60, 60, 90, 60. Then it gets even more drastic in 2023, where it's 60, 70, 40, 80, 60, 60, 90, 70, 50, 70, 70, 40. So like higher highs and lower lows. And then 2024, he only played 6 games. He had 3 in the high 60s, then a 90, and then 2 in the 50s, and then he was done for the year. So very much all over the place. You want to probably look at his 2023 tape instead of 2024 ideally, but even then it's like, well, he's trending in the wrong direction. So going backwards is maybe giving him too much credit. I don't exactly know. Let me tell you though, I'm just getting started here with this game against Ohio State. His change of direction, closing speed, what is stupid. And I'm not talking about like his ability to chase from behind. I'm talking about he's in his back pedal, sees the quarterback lock and load toward the guy he's covering, and in a blink, he's on him. I went back and watched him this one play where he did that. The ball didn't even go in that direction, but he saw the quarterback start to get ready to throw. He was on that guy. I watched it probably 3-4 times because I couldn't believe how quickly he was on that guy. A couple plays later, he does it again and gets a pick. Now, I don't know why the quarterback threw it because he shot over there in a second. Probably should have caught that in time and not thrown it in that direction. But that is something I'm noticing immediately is he is like a freaking rattlesnake. He can coil up and then just boom. In a second, he is on that guy. And then kind of unlike the Jade Baron thing where he gets a pick and I give him crap, a couple of plays later, he's running with Marvin Harrison, gives up a completion down the field. Marvin Harrison, whatever. The important thing to me, though, is Harrison ran a 4.46, and he was stride for stride with him. So do I wish, he had gotten his arm to punch the ball out or whatever? Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. You kind of get your arm in there, and sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. But, I mean, he was stride for stride with a 4.46 guy. Now, it's not 4.29, but if you're worried about speed and you see a guy that can run stride for stride with someone like that, it helps assuage some of the concerns there for me. And a little while later, though, he does get cooked down the field by him. Tackles him before the ball even gets there, so he gets the flag, and he still catches it. Man, I am so close to saying this is my first true official, lock first round. Really, really like him. The speed it might be a problem. I want to like the guy so much, but, I mean, if he... And it was somewhat of a disadvantageous situation. He was in zone, and he kind of ran into his zone, so you had to pick him up later, but there was no makeup speed, it just, the gap was there and it just kept growing. Oh, I want this to be the thing. Listen, as far as what we said earlier about just seeing the vision, I can absolutely see it. The speed kind of maybe has me a little concerned. Obviously, there are things that you can do to mitigate that. It's not like we got burners all over the field. I don't think we have anybody that's slow at corner right now, but, I absolutely could see the vision. And, again, the other interesting thing about it is if the concern is what if he flies down the field and you're taking some big shots. Remember, that's what teams stopped doing because of the safeties that we had. They stopped launching the ball down the field because it kept getting picked off. So they started attacking shorter and, across the middle of the field and all that kind of stuff. Not saying we should get a slow guy because then, we can start getting picks with our safeties or whatever. But, yeah, I don't know, man. I think Marvin Harrison's kind of eating his lunch a little bit here more and more the more I watch this. There's some stuff he does that are really good. But, I mean, if you're going to say he's like a top 10 guy and he's up there with Marvin Harrison, he's not. So, and I know there's not like premier talent. But if I'm being honest about the way that I would do this, I would say, we've got some late first, early second round guys. I don't know that I'd put anybody really high up, including Jade Baron. I mean, Savon Revel is maybe one of the highest, but there's a lot of question marks there. Johnson's speed is troubling. I mean, he's potentially a late first, early second type of guy. Jade Baron, I would say the same thing, honestly. Late first, early second. Hairston is a second-round pick. I mean, just all day. I mean, he's one of those guys that has upside, but he's got serious limitations. You can't take a guy that's 180 pounds in the first round. And maybe they will, and maybe the Packers will. I don't know. Amos I like a lot. I mean, he might be, I don't want to say he's my top corner, but he could be. Depending on some of the stuff here, Amos might be up there. He has less that I'm concerned about. He doesn't have the size issues that I'm scared of with Hairston or the speed issues with Azariah Thomas and Will Johnson. He doesn't have the injury issues like Savon Revel and Will Johnson. But I just, if you're thinking first round in terms of just a guy that you feel like today can not only come in and be a starter, but has some superstar potential. I don't know if Will Johnson has it. I don't know if Hairston has it. I don't know if Azariah Thomas has it. Maybe Jade Baron, but I'm a little iffy on that. Revel has it. He just has so many scary red flags. Even Amos, I don't know about the upside. I like his floor. I like the way he plays. I like him as a football player a lot. I hate the lack of physicality. But is there a Jair? No. There is not a 21-year-old running a 4.3 at 200 pounds with a 1.52 10-yard split. Nobody has a 1.52 10-yard split, including Hairston. There's not a Jair, I don't think, in this group. It's not to say there can't be a guy that breaks out or can't be like a stud, but I like some of the guys. I don't love any of the guys. But let's real quick go through the Beast guys here with Will Johnson, 3-year starter at Michigan, outside cornerback in Wink Martindale's zone-heavy scheme. Again, another kind of knock. I know we play a ton of zone. I get all that. I'm just saying I think we'd like to move in that direction and find guys that can handle it. And you go to Wink Martindale's zone-heavy scheme, and it's like, well, I mean, maybe we could teach him, but I don't know. It's also scary if you don't have speed to be able to handle that. If you're playing man-to-man and he gets behind you, you're dead. Generally you handle the lack of speed with giving some depth and giving some cushion. Well, we want somebody up in your face. Now you're talking Savon Revel or something like that who can kind of turn and run. Maybe even Amos with 4.43 can handle that, whatever. But I don't want 4.58. He's got a receiver background, which shows when he has a chance at the ball. Physical tackler, quiet business-like demeanor. Requested number 2 so he could wear Charles Woodson's number as extra motivation. He's made some business decisions, which is a nice way of saying I'm not tackling him. Battled several injuries the past 2 seasons. Surgery, a minor scope following 2022 season, which sidelined him for 2 games at the start of 2023. Sat out 2023 Big Ten Championship game with a minor injury. Missed 7 games as a junior. 1 to a shoulder issue and the final 6 to a toe injury. William Will Johnson, the youngest of 2 kids, born and raised in Detroit with his dad Dion and mother Kafi Kumasi. Dion, now a coach and co-founder of Sound Mind, Sound Body Youth Football Organization, was a defensive back at Michigan from 90 to 94, was part of the 3 Big Ten championships. His older sister, Kaylee, was on track and field team, indoor and outdoor at Michigan State and Texas Tech, earning All-America status and winning the Big 12 shot put title. After a stint with Detroit Lions and Rutgers, Kaylee was hired by Michigan football in March 2024 to be director of campus recruiting. Oh, that's crazy. I wonder what she was doing with the Lions. I don't know. With Sound Mind, Sound Body, Will Johnson grew up in environments that put his football skills on a fast trajectory, started training at a young age with his father, as well as specialists like speed trainer Johnny Drake. Enrolled at Grosse Pointe South High School, became the first 4-year varsity starter in school history. Helped the team to combine 15 wins over the first 2 seasons, back-to-back league titles. Senior, he finished 45 tackles, 12, earned All-State honors. Also lettered in basketball, 5-star recruit, 3rd-ranked cornerback in the 22 recruiting class, number 1 recruit in Michigan, ranked as the number 15 prospect nationally, grew up in a Wolverines household, introduced to Michigan football at a young age, regularly attended the Big House, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion he'd end up in Ann Arbor. After receiving his first scholarship from Southern Miss during his freshman season, the recruiting floodgates opened with offers coming from Alabama, Florida, LSU, Notre Dame, and several other top programs. After taking visits to Columbus and L.A., Johnson narrowed his decision to Michigan, Ohio State, USC, but the chance to stay close to home and continue his family legacy led him to Ann Arbor. He was the top-ranked recruit in Jim Harbaugh's 22 class and enrolled early. He opted out of Michigan's 24 bowl game, skipped his senior season to enter the NFL draft. He's a freshman All-American in 2022, first-team All-American, first-team All-Big Ten, and defensive MVP of national title game with a 36-yard interception touchdown in 2023. 2024 second-team All-American, honorable mention All-Big Ten, 86-yard interception touchdown, 42-yard interception touchdown, 7 missed games, shoulder and toe injury. So again, I get it. If he ends up falling because of all this and the Packers take him, I understand it. Because if it wasn't for a couple of these little things, there's certain stuff he does where I'm looking at it, and I almost just stopped it and wanted to come back and say, this is the first guy. This is the first guy I saw that is a legit number 1 stud. I want him, all that stuff. And then it just kept going, right? And, there was the tackle from behind because he got beat, and then there was the quick cut where he just got beat, and then he missed the tackle, and I mean, and it's of course Marvin Harrison Jr., so you're comparing him and just saying, this is what it looks like up against NFL caliber wide receivers, and I wanted it badly because there just aren't any corners that are like jaw droppers. I get it with basically all of them. I can get behind any of them to varying degrees, but there's really nobody on the list that if we drafted them, I'd be doing backflips. I think it's a range of, man, this guy could be a stud, to, I get it, that seems like a smart, intelligent business decision, like Trey Amos. Like, it's nothing flashy. He just seems really good, really smart. Probably going to be a solid starting corner, which is great. Thumbs up. But, all right, so that is corner. These are all of the, let's say, potential first-round picks for the Packers, possible second-round picks, but I wanted to get all the possibles in there. So I will leave you with that, and I will talk to you later on tomorrow, I guess. We don't see a lot of calls, so I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.